Hello and welcome to Beginners Python and Machine Learning. My name is Tim Cummings. We're a meetup group for people wanting to learn how to use Python and also getting into machine learning. We do once a month approximately. We have an in-person session in Brisbane City in the mall at Brisbane Business Hub, and the rest of the time we do online sessions, and this is an online session. And tonight we're going to be doing a repeat of our in-person session from the 27th of September, where Alex Stenlake, who's an expert on deployment and getting your Python environments just right, showed us how to install PyEnv and PDM, and also Git and VSCode. So PyEnv is a way of installing different versions of Python on your computer so that you can test in different versions, which is important when you're trying to deploy. So you want to make sure that the Python you use in development is the same as the Python you're using in deployment. PDM is a Python dependency manager along the lines of some of the JavaScript dependency managers like npm or pnpm. So we had a few problems when we were trying to install it on Windows, but tonight I'm going to try to show where those problems were, and we're going to try to do the whole thing without requiring administrator access. You can follow along, and if you want to ask questions, you can ask it on Slack, and there's instructions on how to join our Slack channel, and we'll go best if you put the comments into learning to code, and that way I'll keep an eye out for them, or you can just use the YouTube chat, and we've got 2 people already, so welcome to you too. Alright, now I've created a script for what we're going to go through, and that's on the GitHub site. So if you want to go to GitHub, the link to that is just below the YouTube video that you're currently watching, and I've also put it in the meetup, which is the one that I'm showing here. So if we go to the meetup, we can see now this GitHub session, this GitHub repository has details for all the sessions that I do online, so you can just look them up and look at any of the old sessions, and each one of these files will have a link to the YouTube, so you can watch the YouTube as well. Alright, so this one here, Meetup 192, which is tonight, Wednesday the 18th of October. There's our YouTube link, our GitHub link, and so what this is a we're going to be using the GitHub repository that Alex Stenlake set up, although I've done a fork of it, and here's the URL to our fork. But anyway, we'll get onto that soon. Here's some references on the different bits of stuff that we're installing. So we've got Git or PyEnv, PyEnv Win. So if we're doing this on Windows, so we're actually putting in PyEnv Win, which is slightly different to PyEnv, and because PyEnv's not supported on Windows, but it is just a fork, so it'll give us the same capabilities, and it's actually recommended by the PyEnv people, and also the Python Dependency Manager. Okay, so these are things we're doing: Visual Studio Code, Git and Git Bash, PyEnv and PDM. So firstly, how to install Microsoft Visual Studio Code. Now you can go to the link as Alex recommended, or I like to install things that are in Microsoft Store just using Microsoft Store. So let's pull that up and show how to so I'm using an account here which is not a administrator on this computer. So if you don't have administrator access, you should be able to install this stuff. So let's try VSCode. Let me know if you have any problems. I might be able to help you. And so here we go, Visual Studio Code. It's free, and we can just click on install here in Microsoft Store. So it's downloading, installing. So that's pretty simple, and that will eventually finish. So in the meantime, let's have a look at Git Source Code Manager. So we'll go to the Git site and download the installer for that. So we'll probably put the 64-bit installer on, and so this is the one you want here, 64-bit Git for Windows setup. Okay, so that's downloading nice and quickly, and I'll just go back to our script. Okay, and here we see our Visual Studio Code has installed. So I can close Microsoft Store now. Okay, so we'll find our installer that we've downloaded. Here it is, and you can see I've downloaded it before. So let's just do the new one. So we have to accept the license, and this is where it's going to install now. Because I'm not an administrator, I'm just installing it for one user, not for everyone, and so it's going to install it in users, and this is my username, Pytho, and it's going to put it in app data local programs git. So yours should be the same, except you'll have a different username there. So let's click on next. Already exists. Would you like to install that folder already? Well, that's just because I've installed it before and uninstalled it, so we'll say yes, but you shouldn't have got that. We'll leave all the settings to the default values in the first page and the second page. And now for the default editor, it's probably easier if you choose Visual Studio Code, which you've just installed, as Git's default editor. And that's just when Git requires you to type something in, it'll fire up the default editor for you to type it in with. Let Git decide, yes, on whether to call it master or main. We're not creating any repositories at the moment, so that's not a problem. Git from the command line also use third-party software, so that's all good. It's really the only oh, here we go, I've done accept all other defaults, so yeah, we'll just keep working through. And that will install. Now Git is for source code, so you're copying code that other people have written onto your computer, and you can actually make changes and push it back up, make a pull request so that if they like it, they can take it into their repository. And so it's a very good collaborative tool for helping writing open source software. And even tonight's script, I copied Alex's repository and found a couple of things I'd like to fix for the Windows, and I've set up a pull request, so I'm just waiting for him to pull them back into his main repository, and until he's done that, we'll tonight just use my fork of his repository that's got the same my changes in it. Okay, now Git also comes with Git Bash, which is a command line. Bash is a shell, just like used for on Linux, and it used to be the default shell on Mac, and now you can have Bash running on Windows if you've installed Git. You can also get it if you install Windows Subsystem for Linux, but we're not assuming that at this stage. So to run git bash, here we go, it says recently added git bash, so it's in our start menu, or I could have just typed git bash, but I'll just select it here from recently added. And there's my command line. Alright, now the way a command line works is you can type stuff on the command line. So if I say pwd, it'll tell me the path to my working directory is /c/user/pytho, and so that's telling me where I am in my file system. If you're used to DOS, you'll notice that here it uses // rather than backslashes. And also the C is just /c/ rather than C:\\, which is the hard drive or main drive of the computer. All right, you can change directories. You can do a directory listing, which in command prompt you type dir, and in bash you type ls, and that shows all the directories in my current folder. I've got one already called projects, so I'm just going to move that out of the way. Let's see. And have a look. There they are. There's all our folders. So now we can run some code that we've got here, and what it's going to do is going to create a directory. We're going to change into that directory, and then we're going to clone my repository into the directory, and then change into that repository, clone, and have a look at what files are there. So let's copy this, and to paste in git bash, if I right click, it'll tell me that paste is shift insert, or I could just use the right click on the mouse. So there's the 5 lines I'm going to do. So it's going to do the first one, which is create the folder, then it's going to do the changing the directory, then it's going to clone it, which you can see here, and then it's going to list all the files in the folder. And you can see the prompt is now showing where I am. I could also find out where I am by typing pwd. And I can also have a look at all the files that are in this folder. So how's it going? Are things happening on your computer like they are on mine? Is there anything you're noticing that is happening differently? Just let me know, so that we can try to sort out some of these issues as we go. Now, is this supposed to be for beginners? So no question is too basic. All right, our next step, we want to run Visual Studio Code that we've installed, and we could run that from the start menu. It'll be down here somewhere under Microsoft, probably. No, under Visual Studio Code. But one of the things about Visual Studio Code is that it likes to have a current directory that is its project directory. And what most people find the easiest way of doing that is to go into the command line. The command line can be anything. It could be git bash or PowerShell or the command prompt. And in there, type code and then the name of the directory that they want to be the working directory that Visual Studio Code is going to work with. And in bash, we can just use, well, in fact, all of them, we can just use dot to say the current directory that we're in. So this is the current directory that we're in. So if I just type code space dot, it will run Microsoft Visual Studio Code, and it will use the current directory as the project directory. And you can see here's the project folder or directory with all the files that are in it. Do I trust the authors? Yes, I trust the authors. And now I can look at any of the files in this folder just by clicking on them in the left. Okay. Okay, so we've got a big. Let's just close this window here. Do you want to install extensions? No, I don't. We've got a place here to display what's in these files, so I could click on a file and it will display it here. I can scroll up and down through it. But I also, there's a third part of this display, which is terminal. So if I go to the view menu, or I can just type control, that's a backtick. If I type that, it'll bring up a terminal down here. So this is another way of getting into a command line. I can make that part of the window a bit bigger just by dragging up. So see, we're in terminal, and the type of the terminal is PowerShell. If I want to hide these files or whatever, this little menu down here shows what displays on this left panel, and by I can just look at each one of those, or if I click the same one that we're currently in, it will just hide them totally. So get rid of that left panel, and we're just left with the right panel, which at the moment is one file which I don't need, so I'll close that, and my terminal. And I've chosen, and it's chosen PowerShell for us. If we were on a different computer that doesn't have PowerShell, it probably chose Bash or Z Shell for Mac. Alright, so let's have a look at some things we can do in PowerShell, and then we'll get around to installing PyEnv Wind. So one thing we can do, we can type this in, echo $env:path. And that shows me the path. And what the path is in a command line is when you type in the name of a program that you want to run, as we did for code, it goes looking in the path for all the list of folders, and in order in that folders it'll look to see if there's any programs by that name in that folder, and if it's not in the first folder it'll go looking in the second, then the third, then the fourth, until it finds it. And if it doesn't find it, then it'll just say an error about can't find that code. Now we'll probably we might be modifying this path later, but it'll be done automatically using scripts. Now one thing about PowerShell is it's really strict security on what you can run, and so by default we'll have a look at what the default execution policy is, and this is what caused a lot of problems when we had the in-person session. That people who've used PowerShell before often turn this execution policy, make it less restrictive, and so they'd done all the testing, and of course everything worked fine for them. But other people who've never used PowerShell before, when they try running something, they've got no execution policies. So as soon as they try to run a script, it just says no, it uses the default, which is restricted on a normal Windows 10 or Windows 11 install. So what I'm going to do here is show you how to make that less restrictive, and what we're going to use this line here. We're going to set the execution policy to remote signed. And what that means is that if it tries to run a script and the script is on a remote computer, then that script must be signed so that we know it's authentic. If it's running locally, then it's just going to assume that you know what you're doing, you've got the script locally, and it doesn't need to be signed. But what's important is the scope of process. So process means this shell, this PowerShell. What we're doing is we're changing the policy for this shell. Now I'll just paste that command in with Control V. And now if I look at what the execution policies are, and I just used up arrow to bring a previous command and then pressed enter, and it ran that previous command, I can now see the process is set to remote signed. So this is the precedence that these policies are used. It'll just keep going through until it finds one that's not undefined, and then that'll be what it is. Machine policy and user policy, we need to be admins to be able to do that, and local machine we'd also need to be an admin. We could do current user, have this pretty much the same effect, but by doing process, I won't be changing your system permanently, and I really don't want to change your system permanently, so that when you quit out of this shell, it'll just go back to how it was before. Now Slade's given us some things here. Two issues that are common is not running the application in admin mode. Okay, so I haven't run VSCode in admin mode. I'm trying not to use admin mode for anything, so hopefully that should be okay. And setting the policy setting, which is what we're doing. We're setting the policy setting. So let me know if you can think of a better way of what I'm doing, because I'm very interested. All right. Anyway, we've now set the execution policy, and now we want to run PowerShell and run the PyEnv win installer. And so what this command is doing is it's going to go to this URI, which is on GitHub, and this is the if you go to the references I had above for PyEnv win, this is what they suggest, and here's the name of the script, and you can see it's in PS1. So it's going to go to that URI. It's going to, the output of that, it's going to save it as a file, and the file is going to be called install pyenvwin.ps1, which is what the name of it was there. And then it's got a semicolon, so we can then put other commands, and it's going to run that command. So it's going to run it locally, so I'm pretty sure it actually doesn't need to be signed in this situation, but that's what it's going to do. So if we paste that in and run it, and now it says PyEnv is successfully installed. You may need to close and reopen your terminal before using it. Okay, so to close the terminal, you can just type exit, and it's now closed. And to open it again, remember you can do control backtick, and it brings up another PowerShell. So now we can see how well it's been installed. And it's not being found. So that was a lot of fun. And so that will be a problem with the path. So if we have a look at what's in our path variable, it hasn't, running that script hasn't changed the path. So let's try running it again and see how we go. So remember, I've got to do the, if I have a look at the execution policy, because we've started a new shell, that's now gone back to undefined. So we'll set that. And we'll run the script. It says it's installed, PyEnv -- version. It's not recognized. Okay. So let's have a look in one of the other shells. So let's go to git bash. See the different ones we can do command prompt or another PowerShell, but let's open up git bash. Let's see if we can, it's not finding it there. Okay. But that's all right. We'll move on to this next bit, because the next bit will actually set up some paths for us in git bash. we'll copy this command, and what that's going to do, I can actually list this command for you. So we can use cat, which is the bash command for typing out the contents of a file. And we're currently in Python intro, so I just need to look in Bootstrap, and I can press tab to autocomplete, and then bash PyEnv profile. So let's look at this file, and what it's doing is it's creating these are the lines of code that it will put into .bashrc and .bash profile. So let's run it, and then we'll look at .bashrc to see what it's created. Okay, cat and bash profile, and it's got to be in the home directory, which is the tilde / is a shorthand for in bash to create the to refer to the home directory, and that's the file it's created. So you can see here it's editing the path variable, and it's putting PyEnv root /bin in front of path, and PyEnv root is going to be our home directory and then .pyenv. So let's have a look and see if that actually got created. So I'll go to my home directory, and there's the .pyenv folder, and in there is PyEnv root. So in there, there's a folder called PyEnv win, followed by bin. So that's didn't happen like that when I was practicing, but let's fix our path so that we can move on. So we need to edit these files that are in our root folder, in our home folder. So we can do it. Let's just see if we can do it from here in git bash. And let's just say the root is here, PyEnv win. Okay, and then I want to write out this file, so that's Control O. And press enter, and then I want to exit, which is, as you can see down here, Control X. I'll try to make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. And now we'll do the same to .bashrc. Control O to save it, and Control X. Alright, and now we'll exit that and create a new bash cell and see if we can now see PyEnv. There we go, now it's finding it, and it's saying PyEnv home variable is not set, recommend setting that. Okay. Now I might have been a bit quick there, and I'm happy to go over that again if anyone needs some help, but you can see we just had to fix the path variable so that when we just type PyEnv without the path in front of it, it knew what we were looking for. I'm just going to have a quick look at what's in .bash profile. to see why. And we're not sending PyEnv home. PyEnv variable is not set. Oh well. We'll just keep going, and we'll see now that we're seeing it. All right. Okay. So from git bash, we can now run PyEnv, and so things we can do here is we can install any version of Python. So, for example, 3.10.11 is a recent version that has been issued by at python.org. So we can install that now using PyEnv. And all we do is type the version that we want to install, and it will go off to python.org and download it and install it. And by doing it this way, we can have several versions of Python all at this installed at the same time, and we can just switch between them. And I'll show you how the switching happens. So did other people have the same problem with the path not being correct? It might be that they've just made a change to PyEnv win, and that's why it's started not working. So we'll have to update our scripts to make that happen. Okay, so that's now installed. Now if I type in Python version, it says Python was not found. Okay, and that's because we haven't told it which Python to use. So now we can type in PyEnv local 3.10.11, and I type Python -- version. It still says it's not found. Okay. Well, while we're thinking about that, let's see what Slade's come up with. Yes, I have this problem. Which problem? I presume you mean the path problem. I'm going to have a look at what's here. So we've got install pyenv-win.ps1. I'm going to try running that from PowerShell and see if there's any errors that happen. Okay. Yeah, so Slade had the path problem as well. Okay, so let's have a look at where Python was supposed to be installed. Oh, from here I can go. Well, let's move on to. So Python's supposed to be installed into PyEnv versions, and there's 3.10.11, so that's been installed. Now, the way it works is that it uses these shims. So that if I type Python, it'll try running this code from here. And so the shims is what should be intercepted whenever we run Python. So I want this shims directory to also be on the path. So I'm just going to type, one of the problems we had the other night was when you type PyEnv init, there was no such command, and so that's still a problem. Okay, so that's fine. Alright, so let's add something more to the path. /, and so I want PyEnv win, and then I want the shims directory to also be on the path. And I'll just make this a bit wider so I can see what I'm doing. And then I want the original path to still be there. Okay. So I'll write that out. And now I'll create a new bash shell. I just did bash profile because that's all that's being used, but you could do bash RC as well. Here we go, I typed it in wrongly. I've got 2 PyEnv wins. Alright, so that's what I want to see happen. Let's fix our profile. Oh yes, PyEnv win is in the root, so I just want to add shims to it. And save that. And we'll start a new bash shell so that it gets that new bash profile. There we go, it's running Python 3.10.11. And if I look in this current directory, you can see the way that it's done this is that it's created a file here called .python version. And if I have a look in that file, it's just got 3.10.11 in it. So it knows that when I'm running Python in this directory that I need to use 3.10.11. And if I was in another directory, it would look for a folder, a file called .python version to see which one it's supposed to be using. And the way that file got created was when we ran the command PyEnv local 3.10.11. Now there's other things that you can do. You can also say PyEnv global, say 3.10.11, and that'll put it up at in your home folder. You see the tilde there. That'll create a .python version there. Or you can say PyEnv shell and then 3.10.11 or whatever one you want, and that'll create an environment variable called PyEnv version, and that'll override any of these local .python versions. Alright, so Slade, did you get the path problem solved, or do you want to see more of what I've put into my bash profile? Alright, so Slade says, good point, often you need to restart your terminal session for it to pick up changes you have made in the environment it is running in. Yes, so what restarting the terminal does is it, when you start a new terminal, it actually runs that file .bash profile, and depending on how you start it, sometimes it'll use .bash profile and other times it'll use .bash rc, which is why we've created both of those files. And what those files are doing are setting up our environment variables. So that's why every time I made changes to .bash profile, I started a new git bash. Okay, so I mentioned here there's a command pyenv install-l, which actually crawls the Python website, so it'll take forever. So if you run that command, you expect to sit back for about 15 minutes while it crawls the website to find out all the versions that you can install. And here I said in shells, the path is the list of directories. Well, the shell will look for programs to run. So here I can do echo $path, and that's there that all the folders that it will be looking in, and they're all colon separated. Okay, Python dependency manager. So this script only works from git bash. It won't work from PowerShell. The last one we had to use from PowerShell. What we're going to do is we're going to download this script, which is a Python script, and then pipe it through. So that's the pipe symbol, through to our Python program, which is Python 3.10.11, which we've installed, and it'll take whatever comes in as a script and run it, so it's actually using Python to install the Python dependency manager. So I guess it assumes that if you want a dependency manager in Python, you're going to have Python installed. So let's copy and paste that in. Remember, shift insert to paste. It's installing PDM 2.9.3, creating a virtual environment. Installing PDM and dependencies. Now you see how they've put the pretty colors here. If you try running this in PowerShell, the colors are all wrong because it's using bash commands to get the colors right. But that's not the important thing. It's just the important thing is it won't actually work in bash unless you're using bash. Alright, so that's installed it at users python app data roaming python scripts pdm.exe. And it wants to add that to our path environment variable. We've already put that in the path, so we should be able to just say pdm-version and it'll tell us it's version 2.9.3. Let's have a look at creating a new bash shell and see what it has done to our path, if anything. No, I don't know why it said it's put it in the path again, because that was what we had before. So that's okay. I'll go back to the one we were in. Okay, so we've installed Python Dependency Manager. I'm hoping, I'm not seeing any screaming, so I'm hoping that everyone is being successful in getting these installed. We've installed PDM, Now, what the advantage of having PDM is it can manage the dependencies of the project that we're currently in. And so we've set up the dependencies in files such as using pyproject.toml. That tells us what some of the dependencies are. You see here with Streamlit, Pandas, NumPy. And it even says which version of Python we require, something greater than 3.10, greater than or equal to 3.10. So now we should be able to run this. We need to install those dependencies, and so there's a command there, pdm install, that will install these dependencies that we've specified for our project, and then we can run pdm start demo and that will actually run it. And this is a Streamlit application, so let's try pdm install. And this is going to be quite slow because it's got to go off and get all these packages, third-party packages, and install them. Here it's creating a virtual environment for this project. So virtual environments are very important to make sure you're not damaging your system install of Python. One of the advantages of PDM is that it does cache these packages as they come down, so if you install them for one project, it'll be then faster to install them for another project later on. So it's quite a lot that needs to be installed for this one. And so each package that you saw, there's only 7 we've specified, but each one of these packages has its own list of dependencies as well. So it's looking at each one, finding out what dependencies are required for each one of those, installing them first, and then installing the package that we've asked for. And now it's installing our project as an editable package, so that then we can run it. And to run it, we just go pdm space start demo. Which is what I had here, and that will do something. I'm presuming it's going to give me some sort of okay, so it's starting Streamlit for the first time. We've never run Streamlit here before, so it's asking if I want, I can put my email address in. I don't want to do that, so I'll just press enter, and now it's starting the package, and it tells me the link that I can go to, and it even opens it up in my default browser. So you can see it over here on the left. We've got some icons flashing around as it's starting to run. And I'm not exactly sure what Alex has designed this project to do, but it's a machine learning project, and it's going to be assessing something. We have to type in a headline, and it will try to work out whether it's world, sport, business, or sci-tech. And I don't think it's very accurate at the moment. So let's say our headline is beginners Python, and control enter to apply. And it says that's science or technology. Well, I could say that's probably okay. Let's try soccer. Let's try soccer. And that's also sci-tech. So I was impressed there for a while, but I'm not impressed anymore. But anyway, that's our machine learning project program that's running, and it's running a Streamlit app. How the Streamlit app works is for another day and another session. He's got another app running, so I'll show you how. So first of all, we'll stop this app that we've currently got here with Control C. So that's holding this Control key while pressing the C, and that stops our Streamlit app. And now in Git, I'm in Git Bash, so I can run the Git commands and have a look at where I am. It says, I'm currently on branch master. There's a couple of things that have changed since we downloaded the repo, which is we've created this Python version file, and we've created this install PyEnv win.ps1 file. But one thing I can do is switch to a different branch. So for example, if I type switch to feature / complex app, and I could see this was one of the names, one of the branches on the remote repository. It's now switched to that app. So a few of the files have changed. Now I'll run the demo based on the new files. I'm hoping the all the dependencies were the same for the complex app. And we can see it running, and it tells you what it's doing. So it looks clever, but it's a web application. We can look under prototype, a way of navigating, and it tells you what it's doing. So feel free to play around with that. And remember, when you want to finish, it's just Control-C. Control-C to stop, and that's now stopped. All right. Okay, now one thing I like when I'm showing how to install something is to show people how to uninstall it. And so the uninstallation command is the same as the installation command for PDM, with just -- remove at the end. So let's try uninstalling. And it just runs the same script but removing. So now PDM is uninstalled. So if I type PDM -- version, I should get nothing. No such file or directory. Okay, to uninstall PyEnv, I can run this command, and it's just got -uninstall at the end. So let's see if we have any luck on that one. Shift insert. I'm not a big and that's a PowerShell command, so we've got to do that from PowerShell. So we'll go back to our PowerShell and type it in, and so that's removed PyEnv. If you want to uninstall Git, you can do it from settings. You got settings, apps, and there's Git. So you could uninstall that there just by clicking uninstall, and the same for Microsoft Visual Code, Studio Code, which was just a user install. You can uninstall that there. Okay, well that's it. Sorry for the hiccups halfway through. I'll have to look in more closely why they've happened, and I'll try to fix the scripts if there's actually a problem with the scripts. But there won't be a session next week because we've got no one available to take it. But the following week is going to be an in-person session on the 1st of November in town. So I'd love to see you come along. There'll be free pizza, and we're learning how to write GUI apps in Python, and it's going to be using PySide 6. So that should be interesting because I haven't done that before. So it'll be presented by David Walker. Love to see you come along, and until next time.